Full house. Thank you guys for showing up. Appreciate it. My name is Naida Albright. I work with Filmmakers for Red. And we are so excited that you've joined us today for this fantastically talented group of filmmakers that you're about to meet. I have a quick question. How many people in the audience are like independent filmmakers or you're working on stuff? Excellent. That's what I was hoping. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, without further ado, please join to the panel Warwick Thornton, Meera Menon, come on, and Paul Gleason.
Hello. Hello. Sorry, we were deep in conversation about how much we enjoy each other's films and sort of getting all sort of fawny and awesomely rock and rolly like we all do when we meet other directors and cinematographers and designers and editors and not necessarily producers, but anyway.
Hey, he produces sometimes, so you have to be nice. Yeah, I know. Well, Warwick, writer, director, and cinematographer. Meera is a writer, director, sometimes editor, and I heard DIT sometimes.
Whenever's required, yeah.
When it's required, which is indie filmmaking. And then Paul, producer, writer, cinematographer, and visual effects supervisor. So we could make a movie right here. We're good. So
we could wreck a movie right here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We need a costume designer. So let's dive in. Right off the bat, I think it's hard not to notice that you have all these roles. So I want to start with you, Warwick. You started your career as a DP, right? And like that, did that evolve into writing and directing, or were you already writing?
Shot a lot of stuff, a lot of features for other people, and a lot of documentaries. And then there was this lull in my life, and Steven Spielberg hadn't called yet. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to get angry with the industry, or just keep waiting and get skinnier and skinnier and skinnier and then get evicted? Or are you going to do something about this? And I went, damn it, I'm just going to start writing short films that I want to shoot. And we can find a director. And because I had no care in directing, but I was happy to write so that I can make the movies that I wanted to shoot. And these little shorts actually started getting money to be made from, in Australia we had Screen Australia, and that, you get $100,000 to make a 10-minute film. You know what I mean? It's pretty cool stuff. You know what I mean? And you'd get $100,000 to make a short film that's that's complaining about the government, who's just paid the $100,000 for the pretty rock and roll situation we have there in that way. But these films were getting funded, but then I was going, okay, we've got to find a director now. And they went, no, we're not giving you the money unless you direct it as well. God dang. So it's kind of, that happened. And so I went screaming and kicking into directing because I just think it's the most painful fucking thing I've ever done in my entire life. It's horrific. It is, cinematography. You see all those bloody toys out there? They are all there to create that you don't have to compromise. You know what I mean? They're actually there to make, like you want that shot, we can give that shot to you. But as a director, it's all about compromise with everything else because the cinematographer's blown all the money on a techno crane. You know what I mean? And some lens system that's, that's brand new and never been used, but it costs a fuck ton of money to have, for a day. All that sort of stuff happens. But with a director, they're all the compromises that you have. So I hate directing. Full of compromises and evil stuff. A lot of witchcraft and sort of, wizardry and, But it's cinematography. It's all this, it's that there and a little bit of alchemy. So it's kind of a cinematographer who turned into a writer and then actually went kicking and screaming into directing.
Well, I'm glad. And Meera, I saw you on the compromise shaking your head. We talked before, and you're doing a lot of big budget stuff now. Look, what do you lose when you go from small micro set budget, like what he's talking about, to a bigger budget? Are the compromises worse?
Okay, they're different, right? Like, I mean, what I so appreciate about Warwick's films and the filmmaking he's talking about, I mean, I wish the U.S. government would give me money to complain about them because I have a lot to say. But here in America, our movie culture is so kind of defined in a certain way, and in order to make the kind of like movies about the quiet movies about humanity that he, like his films so wonderfully explore. We've had to kind of just do it, and Paul and I have had to just kind of do it in a super scrappy way, and so when you don't have money, the compromise is the technical kind of grandeur of what you can accomplish. But I think what you gain is really focusing on story and character, right? So that's kind of, I feel like, where the compromise, but what the benefit is of doing these smaller budget things. I mean, when I've worked on bigger budget things, the compromise becomes like just infinitely more complicated because there's just so many more people involved, like what he's talking about, like the head of every department and their kind of subsidiaries and their kind of, particular interests or the things that they have stake in making sure their work is best represented on screen. But again, as the director, for me, all that I'll ever come back to, whether it's a big budget thing or a small budget thing, is character and story. I mean, that is, I think, the benefit of being in the director's seat is that you are really the person that needs to be solely focused on that. And so if that's what kind of turns you on, then I think it's the best. It can be the best gig, right?
Because it's on you. And so, Paul, you wore many more hats and then I read an article, and then I got all the real deets on you about how many hats you wore on Didn't Die. As the DP, visual effects supervisor and producer and co-writer, did that help you navigate budget in terms of shot lists and equipment, stuff like that?
I think what our movie had that was really special was we ended up filming with a monochrome camera for Red, and we were making a deliberate homage to Night of the Living Dead and like Carnival of Souls, kind of like ghoul films from like the early 60s. And that was a really like intentional thing, but it was a technical choice too, because the monochrome camera, by like removing the barrier filter, like you get 4 additional stops. So like our ability to make like really small lights go really far was an incredible thing because it allowed us to move quickly. Also, like color is just such a powerful tool, and if you're not wielding it, it will wield you.
Yeah.
And so just eliminating that. Also for visual effects, I was doing everything in Blender with CC0 licensed stuff, and I needed to be able to just grab like stuff off the shelf. There were 119 VFX shots in it, and I'm doing them basically all by myself, and it just needed to move quickly and have as much options available. And then as a creative choice, it was just an incredible, it's so expressive. We used to throw around this term called organic evenness, which I don't know where we picked that up, but it kind of reminds me of like with exposure, your first lesson in class for exposure is like, imagine each stop is just a bucket, and you're trying to fill that bucket to the rim. If it goes over, then you're overexposed. And so I think with organic evenness and whatever the movie is, if you have a huge budget, you're just trying to make every little thing go as far as it can. And if you weigh the production down with like the latest lenses, like which was just mentioned, it's it's incongruent with the film, and it hurts it. You're trying to be part of the mechanism. At any level, you have to know what's going to be the most useful tool for that job, and how is it motivated creatively too. So
Fantastic. Warwick, in your early feature, Samson and Delilah, which I was lucky to see the other night on the big screen, the 2 main characters almost never talk to each other. And from the very beginning, the audience knows that this is not going to go where we think. Tell me how you let your characters and their story breathe. And what does that mean, and how do you do that?
I don't know. Pretty simple, eh? I pitched this thing as a petrol-sniffing teenage love story. And people are like, oh, wow, okay. It's like, and they're not really going to talk. But, writing from the heart is obviously, the teenagers. I actually was a teenager once, but my son once said to me, Dad, you don't understand, you've never been a teenager. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, son, I still love you. But, just writing from the heart and I went in with a bit of anger, in that film. It's like, these are kids who are voiceless in society, and how can I give them a voice without them speaking? You know what I mean? And you just starting there, that's a pretty good foundation to write anything, really, eh? You know what I mean? These kids could be in the Valley. They could be...
Absolutely.
They could be in New York. You know what I mean? This is just universal teenage shit that we've all gone through. So let's just delve into that. And we're talking the poorest of the poor, Indigenous people from my community. But there's still realities in a strange way of the richest of the rich from Beverly Hills. You know what I mean? It's sort of, love is it transcends any kind of financial existence or any of that sort of stuff. So just try starting there and thinking about, actually everyone's been a teenager. So let's write a story about not being able to speak, and if you fall in love with someone, you throw rocks at them. You know what I mean? Because one of my daughters really into Hannah Montana at a very young age, and you could see these monologues from Miley Cyrus that were written by a 48-year-old man who's gone through 3 fucking divorces and has this this perfect dialogue for the way a teenager's supposed to feel about love, and it's like, Jesus, that wasn't me. That had nothing to do with me, you know what I mean? I didn't talk to my mates. Yeah, mate, I'm really in love right now. Yeah, oh God, they're so beautiful, the way their hair falls. What the fuck is that? You know what I mean? So it's, my idea is like, oh my God, in my back of my brain, oh my God, she's really pretty. I'm going to throw a rock at her. And that's the foundations of actually doing, I think, good storytelling, maybe.
I think so.
Yeah, though I'd rather have the writer from Hannah Montana's Cash, you know what I mean? That guy, but anyway, we don't care.
That's where the good stuff comes from. Meera, and like I said, you're now directing a lot for TV, For All Mankind, Miss Marvel, Westworld, Star Trek recently.
Shut up.
I know. To name
Rock
a
and
few.
roll, sister.
No.
Fuck yeah.
So why did you decide to get, sister? No. So why did you decide to get back to the small crew for Didn't Die?
It was a slight midlife crisis of a film, but it was because I think it was exactly kind of dovetailing on your first question to me, which is like, I enjoy the big sets. I enjoyed like kind of figuring out, what else can I do with a 70-foot techno crane? Like, it's just like when things are so available, like you can play a lot more and just expand your vision. But in some ways, when there's like hundreds of people on the crew, I just found myself feeling further and further away from the film or the material some days. Other days, when the scene is intimate and it just varies. TV is very much, I think of it like directing wise, it's like going to the gym. You just get thrown all these scenes and these scenarios and these actors, and you're just exercising, again, that muscle of what matters, what is the story, who are these characters, and what is the essential truth I'm trying to capture in this moment. So it's been a tremendous way for me to just grow as a filmmaker, but I found myself missing just the tangible aspects of filmmaking that I felt when we've made our first film, which Didn't Die was in some ways like a kind of a cap on that process we kind of started. In the first film we made out of film school, where we were wearing all these hats, and I was transferring the footage at the end of the day, and so then I was watching. I was not only so familiar with the footage because I had shot it, but I was also watching it and really intimately involved with labeling it and kind of figuring out how to organize it. Although we didn't end up editing the whole thing, I was like I put the assembly together, and just like having that kind of intimacy of process does start to, I feel like, go away the bigger budgets you have, because a director's role is become very codified. It's all very unionized. It's all, which we are all grateful for, but I just feel like the kind of fluidity of just being able to fix my actor's hair on set and just kind of just touch things. And, again, these bigger film sets, things become very, move things, like without a set dresser getting really upset with me. Like, these things happen on TV shows, which, again, I think it's really important. This is a really important industry for all of us to kind of continue to have jobs and working and have everyone have value. But I think this is where indie filmmaking will always be a part of my heart, because I started off just being a filmmaker, like the two of us in film school, just doing everything, and I feel like I needed to inject that sense of urgency into my filmmaking practice again, so that's why we made it small.
Let's take a look at the trailer for Didn't Die, please.
Hello, listeners of the Didn't Die podcast. This is our 100th episode, 100. We did it. Thank you for listening. You've made it worth it that we didn't die. So this is just a friendly reminder to stay alert, especially at night when biters feed. And you guys know the most important rule. Kill to avoid further spread. Jesus, Barbara.
Malhotra family in the house.
What's up?
I saw a biter during the day.
No way. That's impossible.
Okay, but one biter could mean more biters, and more biters could mean thousands of biters. How are we surviving? Guys, how are we doing?
I got really lonely and I thought about killing myself, but I ran out of bullets like a long time ago.
Does anyone else have something?
Does anybody know this baby or just want it?
Vincent?
Hi.
I can't believe you're still alive.
You are too?
I really thought I would be ripped if I was gonna be in a doomsday situation. It's like I can't even do a push-up.
A lot of you have lost a lot of stuff, but like, where are the hot people at? Less biters, more orgies, you know? Little talked about problem. Vincent, is this how you're living?
I'm just trying my best, and this is it.
I don't like him and he shouldn't be here.
Vin!
Come on, let's go.
You've had a gun this whole time?
I could interview you.
Did you just have a good idea?
Are you okay?
Sometimes I find myself saying the words so many times until they lose all meaning. Didn't die, didn't die, didn't die, didn't die, and eventually it just becomes, didn't I?
You should listen to my podcast. You would
I
feel
do
less...
listen to your podcast. Why do you keep calling
You're-
it a podcast?
You're a...
It's on the radio.
I saw in a Sundance interview with Meera that you wrote Didn't Die. That Paul was the one that came up with the Didn't Die.
Oh, the last line.
Yeah.
I mean, and yeah, we co-wrote the script together. Yeah, he wrote that line. I love that line.
Yeah.
It's funny. The thing that happened with the movie is we finished it, and then like 2 weeks later, the fire happened, and our house burned down.
Oh, yeah.
And we lost all of our equipment. And I'm trying not to bring down the house with that, but to that point, it's an experience that like, aren't there like chapters of your life where you're like, wow, that version of me is gone. I'm still the same person, but like, didn't I kind of, and so like a lot of the footage on it, we filmed in our house and we like see this stuff. It's weird, like seeing ghosts, you know, we were literally doing the DCP while the smoke is, before we went back from the DCP, we go to the house and it's like burning in the afternoon. It was just like this,
I don't want to be evil about that, but as an indigenous person, it's like, we'll give you, the universe says, I'll give you something, but we'll take something away.
Yeah.
You know, I thought about that a lot because it felt like, I almost felt like, it's weird to be like, am I the center of things? Because we were like putting ourselves out on such a limb. And honestly, we were very lucky. We got our insurance like 3 weeks before the fire. We had the yeah, it's insane. Like we had somebody watching out over us, which when you take a step outside and you're like, you know, people who didn't have those types of things, or they were just like living a normal life. And I feel really like we're very blessed. But yeah, I'm not trying to talk about that, but it's almost hard to separate the two of them. We're driving to Sundance on the way, and Meera's on like NPR, like talking about like this fire and the movie. And, you know, I think Didn't Die, like right now we're in this moment of just having to be forward thinking. And it's weird to revisit it from the past, but like the growth that you have along the way, I think we'll be grateful for at some point. Yeah.
I think that's what independent filmmaking is right now. It is from the gut, from the core. And I think that's what we need more than anything right now are those voices, your voices, all the new filmmakers coming up, telling it from that point of view.
You know, we recently were able to acquire some more equipment again, and it's just like there was a junction point for any independent filmmaker here. You know, it requires so much, and there's almost like a nice quality to being like, wow, it's gone, you know, this levitation. But, you know, you need these tools, and it's a technical art form, and it's getting easier and easier, but then you can also like push the envelope a little bit, you know.
Paul's been so stressed out. He's like, I have all this equipment again. It's just like this thing where it's like the fire really did, even though it was traumatic, there was a release. He was letting go of all this stuff because yeah, you do have to like have so much stuff as a filmmaker.
And it was old DAT machines, so it was great that it burned down because you got the latest.
Well, it's so funny because everything, all the equipment is like, you know, was super old, and it's weird to have like new things again. So.
Yeah.
Thank you, insurance.
Absolutely. My version of the pandemic, and thankfully nobody in my family died. We all got the right injections at the right time, you know, all that kind of stuff. None of my family died. And I kind of, in a weird way, COVID became this kind of like cinematic savior for me because I just sat at home, drank beer, got really overweight. But I talked literally every second day to Kate Blanchett. You know what I mean? And it was just, we've got to make a movie. We've got to make a movie. I was threatening to, learn how to do bar chords on a guitar, and I was like, no, that's really painful. You learn 3 chords and you can play every song in the world. No, that's going to wreck, the history of guitar. So I kind of talked to her like every second day, and then the film New Boy came out of it.
Watch The New Boy. It's
Yeah.
so gorgeous.
And,
Amazing.
The pandemic went, and it was just like, actually, did the universe just give me something? Yeah. You know what I mean? Did it actually? Because it wouldn't have happened. Yeah. Kate wouldn't have called me. She'd be too busy with, some Mexican rock star director.
She was fantastic in it, too. I loved her in it. All you can see is her face. She's a nun. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Red, because all of you shoot Red.
Why?
I know, because I'm the
Is
Red
that
lady.
what we're here for?
No.
No,
You're
of
here
course
for
not.
them.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
why you're here.
And
but
the sexy camera.
It is a sexy camera. I want to talk to Warwick about, we just talked about The New Boy. That was DXL2. And then you did shoot Wolfram on Raptor X. And so
Yeah.
I want you to tee that up, and then we're going to look at that.
So the last one was Raptor. The 3 before that were the Panavision DX.
Which is the Monstro sensor.
It's and see, my ever-suffering camera operator and focus pullers go, Warwick, it's the same fucking sensor. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, really? I never knew that. You know what I mean? So, and Panavision, as much as I love their lenses and they're my go-to lenses, that XL2 just became a little bit long in the tooth, and like, you couldn't put it on her own, and it's just too heavy. All those kind of wonderful things were happening to this beautiful camera that I just got so used to, but I was getting used to the sensor, and the sensor was red. And even Anne Lyons in Australia, Panavision, who's like, like the woman who saves my ass every movie. I said, "Oh, give us the XL2 again," and she went, "Oh, it's a bit. Maybe you need to go to the Raptor." You know what I mean? So actually, it was Panavision who actually, and you know what I mean. And I was like, "Oh, okay, scary." You know what I mean? I don't know. You know what I mean?
What's scary about it?
Well, because I grew up with stocks. You know what I mean? I grew up in the 90s, shooting 5.2, 4.5, 5.2, 9.3, Super 35, Panavisions, and stocks were my thing, you know what I mean? I knew latitude, I understood T-grain, understood the grain, I knew that if it was 100 ASA, I'd rate it at 50 ASA, it'd be a stopover, and then I'd print it down in the lab, and everything just became beautiful, and I was in a very safe place as a cinematographer. And then came digital, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh shit, here we go, you know what I mean? And, I don't miss film. I don't miss film, because actually where I come from, it takes 6 days to get a neg report. I shoot in Alice Springs. It takes 6 days for it to get to a lab and be processed, basically to get a fucking piece of paper that says focus, okay, iris, okay, scratches, none. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And that's all you get. And that takes 6 days, and you've got sets up, you're shitting yourself, and you know what I mean, because you don't know. Or every night you're having bad dreams that you actually rated the stock wrong, or you put the wrong stop on your sisters put the wrong stop on the iris, and oh shit, I didn't actually factor in the ND9. All this crap's happening in your head every night you go to bed. You know what I mean? And that just stopped when we started shooting digital. All of that stopped. I miss the sound of it, and I miss the smell of it. I love alchemy, and I think we're all wizards as cinematographers. It really helped me so much. And then I realised that between the ARRI and the red, they are the stock. The sensor is the stock. You know what I mean? And I got so used to the red sensor, and it's such a safe place for me at the moment that I'm just going to I just pair vintage Seasonese Panavision lenses from the 60s and 70s and some 80s stuff, and I jam them on front of these things, and I'm a pig in shit. I'm so happy. And then it's not about the camera or the lenses. It's about what they're looking at, and it's always only about what it's looking at. You know what I mean?
Always.
You can build this monstrous 65mm nightmare that no one's allowed to have. You know what I mean? But there's lots of photos on the American Cinematographer magazine of it. You know what I mean? You can build that, but if I can't have it, it's useless. And it doesn't mean shit to me, because actually what it's looking at and the actor and the performance is just way too more important.
Absolutely.
And because they can all deliver now. Everyone can deliver a great image. But that's the image I know. Anyway.
Yeah, I love it. Let's take a look at the trailer for Wolfram, please.
Oh, this is Wolfram?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I promise you, we'll come back for them.
No. Please.
You gentlemen looking for adventure?
Why are you with those white fellas?
They took me.
He's gone.
Come back!
You let your black go away, did you?
We're looking for a couple of half-breeds. They didn't pass through here, did they?
Them two men that come here. They're hunting us.
Where are they?
Do you think Mama recognizes us when she sees us?
Thank you. Thank you.
On cameras, Paul and Meera, when we were talking about the red in the early days, you guys had the scarlet, but it's less about the red and more about what you were saying, the economy of doing your first film. Farrah goes bang. Why did that work for you?
Yeah, I guess I could speak to that. You know, we were probably one of the first features that got to shoot on the Scarlet. We got it, it came out, we got it like 2 weeks later because we formed this little camera collective out of some friends from film school. It basically just formed like a timeshare around a camera package. And it made a lot of things possible that otherwise we just didn't have the ability to do on our own. And that camera was just, at the time, it's hard to remember that like the Canon 5D, the full frame DSLR just come out not too long before, and everything was so shallow. Such shallow depth of field was the thing, and so you suddenly needed to have, a camera that had some like color depth to it too. And that camera for like the DSMC system, I think that was the first one, and it was really great. It had a lot of limitations in terms of like frame rate and whatnot, but those were compromises I think that we didn't have to make for our film at that time. And eventually we unloaded the camera and we were able to rent it out enough and make some money off of it.
That movie was a road movie, and again, on a micro budget, kind of in that kind of conception of it, we were like, well, no matter how much money we raise, if we can just get 3 actors we like and buy a used car that we like and like figure out the right camera to just like go driving around and shoot this movie and like not get not getting permits, like not shutting down anything, like it was like 3-person crew and like whoever was in front of the camera, so really we at that time our choices just in terms of like size and kind of the ability to squeeze into spaces that we were stealing and in literally the trunk of this Volvo 240 that we bought that Paul would just like that's the only vantage point where we can get a 3-shot of all girls in the car. The 5D and the Scarlet were like our only really like kind of ergonomic like options, and the 5D was so overplayed at that point. I felt the look, what Paul was talking about, a lot of the movies that were coming out of film festivals that I was enjoying like had that same look, that shallow depth of field, that kind of like that feeling of like realness, but like it was all starting to look quite the same, and so the Scarlet was the right choice for us for what we were trying to do at that time. Yeah, it's really just finding the best tool for the time.
And quite like terrible for Warwick Thornton, international cinematographer and man of mystery. This is a little box about that big with a 15mm. It's like that's not a great photograph for the ACS magazine, but that is an unbelievable camera that you can actually stick on a dash and jam it in the corner and put some gaffer tape on it so it doesn't move if you go fast around a corner, and actually shoot some amazing stuff that there's no way you could do with it. You know what I mean? It was actually quite revolutionary in that way. You know what I mean? And I remember going once because I got sucked into the Canon D4 thingy, and I actually went to go and buy 2 of them brand new, and I walked into a camera store and I just literally was about to start crying because I did not want to buy them. But it was like all the directors were like, well, have you got any of those? Because everyone owned them, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I've got 14 of them at the back, you know what I mean? And it was kind of like, it just become this tragedy. So actually, I nearly started crying, and then I went and bought a Hasselblad instead. And I said, I want to take photos. I don't want to make movies on a stills camera. Yeah.
So when you did Sweet Country and Wolfram,
Yeah.
those are pretty epic. Did you use any cranes or movies or stabilization
No,
systems?
I was not allowed to have them.
Nothing.
Look, I get 22 days to shoot a film. That's all I get, you know. And they're 5-day weeks because we don't want to do the Saturday overtime nightmare, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Poor old grips in Australia. It's like, you know, you say, oh, actually, I want a big move like that there. Well, that turns into about 14 meetings. Sad, I'm sorry. And you know what I mean? And 20,000 emails. And I kind of was like, oh, fuck it. I'll just walk down the hill with the camera on my shoulder and we'll do the same shot. The films I make are tiny. I make films for the budgets of catering on other films. You know what I mean? That's the money I work with. And you can't say the film is looks cheap because it was cheap. The film needs to look like it was studio-based, dropped the bag of cash and went for it. And actually, because you can't argue with that, you know what I mean? You're up against big studio rock and roll stuff, and you know, so you kind of have to make your films look as good as possible, and you have a very short amount of time, so you just go for it.
Well, Meera, you talked about on Didn't Die how the stabilization came later. Like, can you talk about that? It was really interesting.
Because we had such limited tools, like we tried to figure out a really deliberate language of progression through the film that we kind of really held off getting a true close-up in anyone's eye line until like about 20-25 minutes into the film, when like a crucial moment when the main actor meets like her ex-boyfriend that she hates but like secretly still is in love with, and somehow managed to survive the zombie apocalypse, much to her chagrin. She was like, of all guys that couldn't have died, it was like this guy. But they reunite, they have this moment, and we were always like, that's the first time we'll get in Kieran's eye line, like let's not get directly in her eye line until that moment. And then, we kind of, in terms of camera movement, we started off really locked off, and then as the film goes on, we kind of loosened up, and then by the end, we're pretty handheld. So it's like simple progressions to chart, but we had a really great film professor at USC that really kind of like put in both of us like a kind of a sense of like how to kind of look at a movie as a chart and really kind of figure out what the progression of visual language is and make choices that are deliberate to the story at every juncture. And so we tried to do that in like a very small way, again, because we didn't have all the tools, like framing and kind of small like kind of choices in movement became the ways we could like slowly change the way people were feeling.
Yeah.
I have my whole crew's actually that's disgusting saying mine. That's actually the crews that I work with who are absolutely unbelievable geniuses who save my ass every day, rather than my crew. There's a thing we do where it's like every time we set up to do anything, you know, a mid shot of anybody or actually a wide shot of a group of people, we always have the eye line below everyone. You know what I mean? And we start there, and it's always a choice to bring the eye line above, you know what I mean? So it's just a standard set thing that everyone has dignity until you don't want to give them any dignity, you know what I mean? So you just sit, every eye line is always below, so it's not a conversation. And then we have the conversation about, well, are they arseholes? Are they in this scene, are they about to get disempowered? You know what I mean? Are they going to lose their confidence? And then we start working the eye line back up, you know what I mean? But it's always a standard thing. Every character gets dignity below their eye line, yeah.
It's funny, the very first tool that we purchased again was the tripod. I just had to have the old one. We had a O'Connor 1030. It's just a great, they don't even make it anymore, but like it's lens height is just the most powerful tool in the entire toolbox. It's the least like sexy or whatever, but and I really we used to watch a lot of like Japanese films, and you know a lot of their society is like low to the ground.
Well, Kurosawa with the 50mm would always, because of kabuki, you know, the theater stuff, it's like literally shoot from the floor.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a hi-hat.
Even if it's like a wide, like what would be like a tracking dolly shot, the camera's always like 3 feet off the ground. And it's like it's a grammar in their society, but it really also gives you great like perspective lines too. So there's a lot of, if you're at enough distance, it becomes flat again. So it's really It's so powerful. And yeah, I mean, I think we were trying to do very small things because those are the things we could control. And
ultimately, what was like eyeline is the most powerful tool you have in the toolkit. So even though it feels small, it's actually, even on these big budget things, like it's ultimately what's telling the story is how close and intimate you are and how much you are inside of a character's perspective and point of view.
It's strange because I like crazy, like people just looking that way and people looking that way. You know what I mean? Just like it's kind of sort of Jarmusch in a weird way. It's it almost seems lazy. You know what I mean? It's all profiles. You know what I mean? And then you realize, oh shit! If you're doing an action scene, you can't do profiles. You actually have to get right around them so you can get the hits. You know what I mean? All that kind. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh damn! So if you ever watch one of my movies, you'll see profile, and then you'll actually, if you see something over the shoulder, or you go, oh shit, someone's about to get hit.
Yeah. Stunts then start to dictate a whole other thing. Yeah, I'm enamored with the backstory of Backrooms and how, in terms of the story, like in terms of the fact that, I mean, this is a kid whose imagination was sparked by a world that was created on the internet by a real estate photo. Like the origin of the world in which he's telling this story, I think is what the lesson we should learn from is. Like, we were talking about it and Paul was like, well, that's folklore. That's the way folklore is formed and worked. And he tapped a vein of folklore that I didn't know, I'm just too old to have understood even existed. And when I understood the folklore, the depth of world building that people had and I find it so beautiful that people just took this one photo and just, collective imagination just ran wild and this whole world was created. And then this kid is growing up inside of it and he writes these stories that like take place in this world. That's I think the lesson to learn from this, is engaging with our collective understanding of story in the moment and trying to understand how to find the story that people find, at least the arena of story that people want to watch, and caring about the audience in that way. That's but ultimately, yeah, both films are studio produced and have a lot of money behind them, but I think there's a lesson to be learned about the way those filmmakers found their story.
What I'm excited about that one is because, I've seen that image and it looks like a Polaroid photo.
Yeah.
And, Polaroid, there's a flash straight in front of the camera. You have this, this sort of weird sort of chemical reaction through this muted piece of, plastic or layers of plastic. And I'd love to see how the cinematographer was to create that, because I think the concept is there's no shadows. You know what I mean? Or if there are, there might be, or is there, I don't know, I haven't seen the story, but there could be a blinking fluoro, but it's just flat as fuck. You know what I mean? And, the Polaroid idea, because, Polaroid had that weird sort of urine yellow or that sort of fucking, bile green kind of connection in actually every time you processed it. You know what I mean? And it's kind of, I'd love to hear how they got that look. You know what I mean? That's exciting. The movies I make, everyone gets a fucking backlight, and it doesn't matter if the sun's there. It's over there for the reversal. You know what I mean? It just works that way, and that's the way I grew up. But making something with no shadows, with that fluoro lit, like a Fiona Apple kind of film clip or something. The earlier Fiona Apple film clips where they're like just that big ring light of just flatness, and you know what I mean, with some really bad 70s wood planing in the back and a green, this kind of colour lounge, and her in her undies running around, that kind of weird shit that they were creating. How do you do that? You know what I mean? Because that's not cinematography to me, but that is really good cinematography to me.
It creates an emotion. Like it makes you feel something for sure, some kind of dread.
This movement is the hardest part, right? Because and that's why having contrasts and over time is a helpful thing, because then when you really need it, you can throw your resources at that too. I think it's in Annie Hall we were just talking about. I think one of my favorite shots is just this long tracking shot, just walking towards the camera. And it's because it's a moving image at the end of the day. You don't need to be constantly moving the head in that's not really movement. It's actually an axis away from you. And if that that's where your movement is coming from. And if you're going like that, the audience is going to have a hard time following it. If you're also moving your other point, then it's going to be really hard. So I think control is all about, Spielberg was mentioning, he does a really good job of always having, there's a shot in E.T., he's running up the stairs. The camera is constantly moving on to a next thing, but that plane that is not moving at all. So it's about directing the eye through, blocking and moving the camera in ways that are like very deliberate. And, sometimes it's motivated. I tend to like motivated movement. Sometimes it's warranted to not have that. Inglourious Basterds, yeah, there's right in that first scene, when the scene changes, it's just dolly movement across the shoulder. Such a powerful thing, so simple. As opposed to having like a really cool Ronin and whatnot is great, and sometimes there's a really great place for it, but it's not gonna give you that much more to storytelling than just these like super simple things. Like a slide, like a Dana dolly is what we basically had to work with. And we use the 8K on our movie like all the time. Like that's incredible. Having some of these digital tools, even if it knocks down the quality, if you have to go there, nobody's really going to care. It's not going to jump out unless
That's a good point, 8K all the way. You know what I mean? Because why would you down to 4 or whatever when actually by shooting 8K, just shoot 8K. It's going to cost you a little bit more cash, but you future-proof your film. When actually finally we do get something that actually really is 8K, because we still bloody haven't, you know what I mean? That we can actually see this stuff in properly. Your film will be ready for that, you know what I mean? In a strange, evil way, like, the Seinfeld shot on Super 35, you know what I mean? And, Here's Lucy shot on 35, because they are actually still on television, because they decided to put some cash in. So it's just shoot everything on 8K. Don't talk to the accountant, you know what I mean? The fucking accountant will say to you, we want, can you do it on 2K?
But it's
you're
not
the
that
most amazing
expensive
camera in the
anymore.
world, the Red, and you're dialing in, its worst position. It's like, that's ridiculous. Turn it up, keep it up.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
We only have 2 minutes left, so really quick, I want you guys to answer, why is the first shot important?
Sense of place, sense of style. Your audience is always going to be like, where the fuck am I in the cinema? But you have a choice. You have a choice to confuse them, or you have a choice to comfort them. Doesn't have to be a wide shot. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to show a location with a period set or anything. That is a big thing about your audience is just going to go, your image, what is it? And you can confuse the shit out of them. You can actually get them to start asking questions, or you can give them a wide shot of a gold rush town in the Appalachians, and and a cart goes past, and they just go, okay, I understand what the hell this movie's about. Or you could have a shot of someone stealing a watch in a close-up, and you follow the watch, and you go, and it's the same town, and it's gold rush town, but actually, what are you trying to say there? You know what I mean? So first shot is so important. Sense of place, sense of style. Do you want to comfort your audience, or do you want to freak the fuck out of them? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the comfort thing comes from trust, right? I think from your opening moments in your film, you're establishing a sense of trust with your audience, especially if you're showing it at a festival where they will just walk out because they have other options, you want to assure them that you have thought about this, and that they're about to, like watching that they're watching something that is deeply considered and intentional,
I really like opening images that make you ask a question. I was thinking of Donnie Darko. If you've seen that movie, like the opening image is him waking up on a hill with a bike, and that's like, how did he get there? Is an immediate question. It's really simple. But we watched Samson and Delilah, and I really loved how your movie started. It makes you sit still, and it makes you get like all of your adjustments out, and you're just kind of there, and then you're in it. It's almost like the way that like a prologue would exist before, like 2001 or something.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really cool choice, and making people comfortable and ready to watch your movie. So.
Yeah. And talking about people walking out of the cinema, I've discovered that around the world there's a secret society of old women, old ladies, and they have their furnaces and their little lunch boxes, and they are actually paid to walk out of your movie 5 minutes in, no matter if it's Sydney Film Festival, Cannes, Venice, Berlin, Toronto, somewhere in the 5 to 6 minute mark, some old lady out the front will go, oh, this is ridiculous, and get up and just, with their furnace. It's a secret society, watch out for it. They get paid a lot of money to walk out of your movie. Yeah.
Please thank our panelists. You guys are amazing.